They said success brings out the best in people. They lied. It was a Tuesday morning when I realized something had shifted. I'd just finished a video call with one of our firm's top clients, Montgomery Co, a legacy family brand with a notoriously high bar for professionalism. The kind of account most people only dreamed of managing. I'd been working closely with them for months, building trust, learning their nuances, and, according to the CEO herself, doing better work than any team we've partnered with before. As I ended the call, I felt that quiet rush of satisfaction. Not the loud kind you shout about, but the kind you tuck in your pocket for later. The proof you're doing something right. Denise didn't like that. She was leaning in the doorway of my office, arms crossed, lips curved in a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Wow," she said, too brightly. "Must be nice being the golden girl." I didn't answer right away. I'd learned that with people like Denise, silence rattled them more than any comeback ever could. She didn't wait for a response. "Just saying," she continued, flicking her sleek hair over one shoulder. "Some of us have been here longer and don't get to cozy up to our star clients on solo calls." I smiled politely. "You're welcome to help with the next proposal. We could use your budget estimates." She scoffed. "Oh, I'm sure you've got it covered. You always do." It wasn't the first time she'd made a comment like that. Subtle digs here and there. Passive-aggressive jokes during team meetings. A sideways glance when I got compliments from upper management. At first, I brushed it off. Office politics, I told myself. It happens. Women are often pitted against each other in corporate environments. I wouldn't play into it. But the bitterness in her voice had started curdling into something else. Jealousy. The kind that simmers under the surface until it finds a way to spill over. Denise had been at the company for 7 years. She knew the systems inside and out, had a reputation for delivering under pressure, and was known to charm her way through difficult meetings. But while I built client relationships, she built resentment. Especially once Montgomery Co requested that I present our new proposal personally, without the full team. "Naomi's been excellent," the client had said in an email that had circulated internally. "She understands our needs better than anyone." That single sentence lit a fuse. Denise didn't say anything outright. She smiled in meetings, sent polite messages. But her energy had shifted. Her eyes followed me when I walked by. Her tone took on a sweetness laced with venom. One day, I overheard her laughing with someone from accounting. "She's good, but not that good. Let's see how long the client crush lasts." And then, on the day I stayed late to finish prepping the new pitch deck, I noticed she'd been in the copy room. Again. "I just needed to grab some printouts," she said casually as she walked past my desk. "Hope your big meeting goes well." That night, I had trouble sleeping. Something about her smile felt off, but I shook it off. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was being paranoid. People don't really sabotage coworkers, not in real life, right? Still, when I arrived early the next morning to triple-check everything before the client meeting, I found the printed proposal files on my desk neatly stacked just as I'd left them. Or so I thought. I didn't have time to second-guess myself. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m., and Montgomery's lead executives were joining remotely from their head office in Boston. This was the proposal that could seal a long-term strategic partnership worth millions. Everything had to go perfectly. And as I walked into the conference room, files in hand and smile on my face, I had no idea what was waiting inside. No idea what she'd done. But Denise knew. She sat in the back corner, pretending to review a report, barely hiding the smirk playing at the corners of her lips. I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there. I just didn't realize I'd already stepped into her trap. The room smelled faintly of coffee and glass cleaner, like every corporate boardroom I'd ever walked into. But today it felt colder, sharper. Maybe it was the eyes watching me from the screen at the far end of the room. Or maybe it was the woman in the corner, pretending not to look while practically vibrating with anticipation. I greeted the Montgomery executives warmly. They responded with their usual smiles and a few pleasantries. I was proud of the relationship I'd built with them. They were the kind of clients who noticed the little things, the way you anticipated their needs, followed up without being asked, and made their job easier without making it look like work. Today's presentation was the culmination of 3 months of effort. Late nights, detailed planning, and more edits than I could count. The goal was to present a phased proposal for their East Coast expansion, including budget projections, marketing strategy, and competitor analysis. It wasn't just a proposal, it was a test. If this went well, Montgomery Company would commit to a multi-year partnership with our firm, and I would officially become their primary liaison. I opened the folder confidently, ready to hand out the printed proposals to the team in the room while the digital version loaded for the remote clients. That's when I saw it. Blank. Every page. No header. No graphs. No content. Just clean, untouched printer paper. I blinked, my fingers flipping rapidly through the stack. All of them. Blank. Not one printed page. My stomach dropped through the floor. "What's going on?" asked one of the Montgomery execs, his voice light but curious. "Is there a delay?" I tried to stay calm, swallowing the panic rising in my throat. "Just a moment," I said, forcing a smile. "There seems to be a mix-up with the printed materials. Let me pull up the digital copy." But when I clicked the folder on the shared drive, nothing happened. The file was gone. Not just missing. Gone. The folder was empty. I searched the backup drive. Nothing. My desktop. Empty. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. How? I had saved everything. Triple-checked. I always did. "Naomi?" Another executive prompted. "We have a tight schedule today." "I understand," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just give me one more minute." From the corner, I heard it. A short, sharp exhale that might have passed for a cough. But it wasn't. I turned slightly. Denise. She was smiling. Barely. A satisfied little curve of the lips, like someone watching a movie they'd already seen. It hit me in a sickening wave. She'd done this. She had access to the copy room, to the shared folders, to the files. She'd stayed late yesterday, too. Claimed she was working on invoices. I hadn't thought anything of it. I should have. The Montgomery team shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. One whispered to another. A third glanced at their watch. "I think we'll have to reschedule," their lead said finally. "We've invested a lot of time into this, Naomi. We expected more." The words sliced through me. I started, but I couldn't find the right thing to say. What could I say? That I'd been sabotaged? That someone had deliberately erased my work and replaced my documents with empty pages? No one would believe it? Not yet. They ended the call early. My manager didn't say a word as he walked out, just gave me a look that was part confusion, part disappointment. Denise stood and walked past me, brushing her shoulder against mine like it was accidental. "Rough morning?" she whispered, low enough that only I could hear. Then she laughed. Laughed. "She's so incompetent," I heard her say as she left the room. Probably loud enough for the intern outside to hear, maybe even loud enough for the hallway. I stood there, frozen, embarrassed, angry, humiliated. Not just because I'd been sabotaged, but because it worked. She made me look like a fool in front of our most important client, and no one would suspect her. She'd covered her tracks, played her part, and I'd walked right into it. For a moment, I considered confronting her. Right there, in the office hallway, in front of everyone. But then I stopped. Because the one thing more powerful than anger is patience. She thought this was the end of the story. She had no idea it was just the beginning. The day after the disaster, the office was quieter than usual, or maybe it just felt that way to me. Every whisper sounded like it might be about me. Every sideways glance stung. I kept my head down and focused on work, or at least pretended to. Emails blurred together. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, motionless. The memory of blank pages haunted me like a ghost. Worse than the embarrassment was the doubt. Would the team trust me again? Would the client? I'd always believed that doing good work was enough, that professionalism, preparation, and performance would speak for themselves. But yesterday proved that someone else's sabotage could undo everything you built, if you weren't ready. I replayed the moment again and again in my head. The blank pages, the missing file, Denise's smug smile as she walked out. The little whisper, "She's so incompetent." She wanted this to be my undoing. And honestly, for a while, it felt like it might be. But then, my phone rang. At first, I didn't recognize the number. I hesitated before answering. It wasn't even saved in my contacts. But something in my gut told me to pick up. Naomi speaking. There was a pause, then a familiar voice came through, low and even. Hi, Naomi. It's Elise, from Montgomery Co. My heart stuttered. Elise, of course, I'm so sorry about yesterday. That meeting... She cut me off gently. I'm not calling to scold you. I went quiet. I'm calling because I've never seen anything like that from you. She continued. In all our time working together, you've been thorough, polished, and always prepared. Yesterday didn't fit. I swallowed hard, barely trusting myself to speak. Thank you. That means more than you know. Naomi, she said, her tone shifting. What happened? The question lingered in the air. Part of me wanted to lie, to take the blame. Say I'd made a mistake, that I'd messed up. It would be easier, safer. But another part of me, the one still burning from Denise's laugh, knew I had to tell the truth. There was interference, I said carefully. I can't prove it yet, but I didn't mess up that file, and those blank pages weren't mine. There was a pause. Then Elise's voice came back, calm but firm. I thought as much. My breath caught. Here's what I'll tell you, she went on. Our company doesn't make big decisions based on one bad meeting, especially when we know someone's track record. I trust you, but I also need to know the people we're doing business with have integrity. If there's something happening on your end, I want to understand it. I felt the tightness in my chest begin to loosen. I'm going to fix this, I said. I promise. I know you will, Elise replied. And when you do, I want to be there. I blinked. What do you mean? I'd like to schedule a follow-up, but this time I want to come to your office in person. No conference call. Just me, you, and whoever else is in the room. She didn't say Denise's name. She didn't have to. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. Let's do it. After we hung up, I sat still for a long time, the phone pressed to my chest. Relief, gratitude, and something else. Resolve. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I opened a new document. Started rewriting the proposal from scratch. Every slide, every chart. I worked like someone rebuilding a house after a storm. Tired but determined, brick by brick. And this time I saved everything in 3 separate places. Local, cloud, encrypted USB. Let Denise try again. By the end of the day, I had a complete deck. Better than the last one. Sharper, cleaner. And this time, Elise would be there to see exactly how I worked. No filters, no interference. Denise passed by my desk as she was leaving. She glanced at my screen, then at me, smirked. You're still trying? That's brave, she said. I smiled without looking up. Oh, I'm not trying. I clicked save and met her eyes. I'm getting ready. She hesitated, just for a second, then left. That weekend, I didn't rest. I reviewed every version of the presentation, practiced my pitch until it was muscle memory. I wasn't just preparing for a meeting. I was preparing for war. Because when Monday came, I wouldn't be walking into a conference room unarmed. I'd be walking in with someone watching. and Denise wouldn't even see it coming. The morning of the meeting, I arrived at the office before sunrise. The city was still waking up, golden light creeping between buildings, washing everything in soft silence. Inside, our workspace was dim and quiet, save for the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the rhythmic thud of my heartbeat. I wasn't nervous. Not this time. I was ready. I printed the new proposal myself, each page checked by hand. I carried them into the conference room and placed them in sleek presentation folders, lined up perfectly like soldiers on a battlefield. I checked the digital file, twice, then loaded a backup copy on a flash drive. Let her try something now, I thought. By the time Denise strolled in at 9:30, coffee in hand, pretending not to notice my presence, I'd already triple-checked everything. She offered me a saccharine smile. "Early bird today, huh?" "Some things are worth showing up early for," I said calmly. She tilted her head, like she couldn't quite figure me out. I saw the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. For the first time, she wasn't sure I'd stay quiet. I didn't give her the satisfaction of looking rattled. Instead, I reviewed my notes one final time as our team gathered in the conference room. My manager took his usual spot at the end of the table, and Denise, as expected, sat beside him. Close enough to whisper if needed. But today, she wouldn't be the only one with ears. Elise arrived right on time. She entered like someone who'd spent her life in boardrooms. Sharp blazer, soft smile, eyes that didn't miss a thing. She greeted everyone warmly, but when she shook my hand, she gave the smallest nod. A silent exchange of trust, of understanding. We began the meeting. I launched into the pitch, page by page, slide by slide. I explained the proposal as if I had written it in my sleep, which, after this weekend, wasn't far from the truth. Elise followed along attentively, asking questions at all the right moments. Everything was going perfectly, until the break. We paused briefly for coffee and water. Everyone scattered. I stepped out to check a call from a vendor. Elise stayed behind in the conference room. And Denise? Denise found her moment. I returned earlier than expected. My call had dropped. As I walked down the hall, I slowed outside the conference room door, still slightly ajar. That's when I heard it. "She's not really client material, you know," Denise was saying, her voice low but clear. "Naomi's good at details, sure, but she folds under pressure. What you saw last week, that wasn't a fluke. That's who she is." I froze. "She's ambitious, I'll give her that," Denise continued, "but she's not a team player. Honestly, I'm surprised they let her take lead on this. If it were up to me..." My breath caught. Elise didn't respond right away. The silence stretched for a few seconds, then I heard her voice. Calm, steady. "That's interesting, Denise." Her tone was unreadable. I stepped back, heart pounding, then walked in slowly, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. Denise turned, all polished smiles again. "We were just chatting while you were out." Elise stood. "Shall we continue?" The rest of the meeting went smoothly, but the energy had shifted. Elise remained professional, but more reserved now. Observant. She watched everything, especially Denise. After the meeting, Elise pulled me aside just before she left. "You were excellent," she said quietly. "Everything was clear, well thought out. You're exactly the kind of person we like working with." "Thank you," I said, trying to keep the emotion out of my voice. She glanced over her shoulder. "By the way," she added, "I'll be in touch with your management team later this week. Some feedback I'd like to share." I didn't ask what kind. I didn't need to. As she walked away, I felt something shift inside me. Not just relief, but power. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. And truth, when spoken by the right person, is impossible to ignore. The email came in at 8:07 a.m. the next day, just as I was sipping my first coffee and going through my inbox. Subject: urgent. Mandatory meeting at 10 a.m. From HR department. To Naomi, Denise, Marcus, our manager, and the department head. No details, no agenda, just a location. Conference room C. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart ticking faster. Whatever Elise had told them, it hadn't gone unnoticed. I looked up and caught a glimpse of Denise as she walked in, fashionably late as always, caramel latte in hand. She slid into her chair like nothing was off, typing with exaggerated casualness. Then her eyes darted to her screen. I watched as she read the subject line. For a moment, her fingers froze. Then, slowly, her head lifted, eyes narrowing across the room. Right at me. There it was, the first crack in her carefully polished armor. She knew the hours between the email and the meeting passed in agonizing silence. Nobody spoke about it directly, but I could feel the whispers buzzing around the office like static electricity. We'd all seen this kind of vague, mandatory meeting before. Usually it meant someone was being let go. Or worse, someone was being exposed. At 9:58, I walked to conference room C with a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. Denise followed behind me, the clack of her heels sharp, a little too fast, as if she was trying to outrun something. Inside, HR was already waiting. Our director, 2 reps, and Marcus. No coffee, no smiles, just folders and serious expressions. "Thank you all for coming," said Lisa from HR, her voice clipped. "We received formal feedback from one of our firm's most high-profile clients yesterday. We're here to address that." My palms were steady. I sat up straight, keeping my eyes forward. Denise shifted in her chair. Lisa opened a folder. The client alleges misconduct during project collaboration, specifically unprofessional behavior, unethical commentary about team members, and what they describe as a toxic atmosphere created by internal conflict. Marcus frowned. "Internal conflict?" Lisa nodded. The client reported a direct experience of one team member undermining another. They described overhearing derogatory comments made about their lead representative, Naomi, by another employee. These comments included assertions of incompetence and direct suggestions that the client relationship should be reassigned. The room chilled. Denise cleared her throat. "With respect, I don't think that's an accurate reflection." Lisa held up a hand. "We're not here for speculation, Denise. The client's feedback was direct, detailed, and backed up by timestamps and names. They requested anonymity, but were very specific." Denise looked like she'd swallowed glass. Marcus turned to her, brows furrowed. "Did you speak to Elise during our break yesterday?" Denise hesitated, then said, "I may have said something casual in conversation, but certainly nothing." Lisa slid a paper across the table. "She described your tone as demeaning, strategic, and inappropriate for the setting. She quoted you calling Naomi not client material and claiming she folds under pressure." I watched as Denise's face drained of color. She glanced at me, just once, and I could see the panic flickering behind her eyes. Lisa continued. "Additionally, we reviewed security footage after the client's note. It confirms that the proposal folders Naomi prepared last week were switched in the copy room approximately 10 minutes before the meeting." Dead silence. Denise's voice cracked. There must be a mistake." Lisa remained calm. "There's no mistake. The footage clearly shows you entering the copy room, removing Naomi's labeled folder, and replacing it with another one." My breath caught. I hadn't even known that part. I didn't need to. They did. Denise looked around, her mask crumbling. "This is ridiculous. I've been at this company for 7 years. I'm one of the best performers on this team. You're going to take her word over mine?" "No," Marcus said, his voice surprisingly cold. "We're taking the client's word, and the footage, and Naomi's track record, and the fact that you laughed after sabotaging a partner meeting." He looked at HR. "What's next?" Lisa closed her folder. "Effective immediately, Denise, your employment is terminated. You'll be escorted by security. We will mail your personal belongings." It happened that fast. She stood up abruptly, knocking over her coffee. No one flinched. She opened her mouth like she wanted to protest, but nothing came out. Her gaze met mine one last time. Not with arrogance, but with disbelief. Then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, and just like that, the storm had passed. I sat quietly, hands still in my lap, heart racing, but steady. Lisa turned to me. The client has also requested that you remain their sole contact. They express strong appreciation for your professionalism and your grace under pressure. Marcus nodded. We're putting together a proposal for a client relations lead role, and we want you to consider it. I didn't say anything right away, because for the first time in weeks, I wanted to enjoy the silence. Justice hadn't come loud. It came quietly, swiftly, and exactly when it needed to. 3 weeks after the emergency meeting, I stood by the corner office window, the same one Denise used to glance at when she walked past, always trying to catch a glimpse of something she thought she deserved. Only now, the office was mine. Client Relations Lead. It was printed in silver foil on the plaque by the door. A title I hadn't asked for but had earned. The official announcement had gone out the day after Denise's termination. My inbox flooded with congratulations, most of them polite, some of them warm. A few whispered apologies made their way through the grapevine. Coworkers who had once rolled their eyes when I stayed late, or who bought into Denise's little jabs and fake concern. She's so ambitious. She's trying too hard. She just wants to impress the client. And they were right. I was ambitious. I did try hard. I did want to impress the client. Because I believed in the work. Because I believed that professionalism, kindness, and preparation still mattered. The news of Denise's firing spread like wildfire. Nobody said it out loud, but I could see the shift. The way people sat straighter during meetings now. The way whispers fell quiet when I walked into the room. There was a new energy. Respect, maybe. Or caution. Either way, I welcomed it. Elise sent me a handwritten note a week after the incident. Naomi, what you handled with grace, others would have handled with anger. Your professionalism only confirmed what I already knew. Looking forward to many years of collaboration. Elise. I kept the card in my top drawer, not out of pride, but as a quiet reminder. That truth always surfaces. That people notice more than you think, especially when you carry yourself with integrity in moments when it would be easier to lash out. I never responded to Denise's final message. She emailed me from a personal account, a long, winding paragraph filled with bitterness, excuses, and a desperate attempt to shift blame. You made me look like a monster, she wrote. You were always the favorite, and I was just trying to keep up. But I didn't make her look like anything. She did that all on her own. I forwarded the email to HR, added it to the file, and moved on. Denise hadn't just lost her job. She'd lost the trust of everyone who once thought she was untouchable. I heard through whispers that she'd been applying elsewhere, but news travels fast. Word was the Montgomery incident followed her. You don't recover quickly from sabotaging a firm's biggest client, especially when that client doesn't stay quiet. Because Elise? She had more influence in our industry than Denise ever realized, and loyalty, once earned, speaks volumes. As for me, the days grew fuller. New meetings, new clients, new responsibilities. The boutique hotel chain Elise introduced me to last month had already signed on for a pilot project. Another client asked for a Naomi type to lead their onboarding. My calendar filled up. My voice carried more weight in rooms it once struggled to enter. But despite the whirlwind, I never lost sight of what mattered. At the end of each day, before shutting down my laptop, I'd take 5 minutes to reflect. Not on the chaos, not on Denise, but on the lessons. 1. Your work will speak for you even when others try to silence it. 2. Sabotage may wound you, but preparation will always be your shield. 3. You don't have to yell to be heard. Sometimes grace under fire is louder than anything else. A few days before my first leadership retreat, I found myself back in the copy room, the same one where Denise had swapped my documents. I stood there for a second longer than I needed to, my hand resting on the printer tray. How poetic, I thought. A room once used to tear me down had helped raise me up. When I left the room, I bumped into the new intern, Mia. She looked a little lost, holding a stack of reports. Need help? I asked. She looked relieved. I didn't want to mess anything up. I smiled. Let me show you a trick for organizing those. We stood side by side, sorting pages, and after a moment she said, Everyone here talks about you. They say you're kind of legendary. I laughed. I'm just someone who learned the hard way that being underestimated isn't a curse. It's a gift. She tilted her head. How? Because it gives you room to prepare, to surprise them. And when you rise, they won't know what hit them. She smiled like she'd remember that. And maybe she would. Because sometimes the best legacy isn't revenge. It's the quiet strength you pass down. One act of resilience at a time.